Hello and welcome to Fearless DIY Music. My name is Tristan Lass, and today I want to talk about how people like me, who are old, used to learn how to play guitar. I began learning how to play guitar in the mid-'80s. There was no such thing as the internet. There were, some VHS cassettes that you could buy and take home and, watch people play and get lessons that way. But the primary way that myself and almost everybody that I knew learned how to play guitar was with books. So we would, go down to the music store and buy tab books on whatever artist or style or theory kind of things that we wanted to learn, and we would buy the books. Also, Guitar Player Magazine, Guitar for the Practicing Musician, all those ancient magazines, those were a huge resource as well. I always looked forward to it, and up in the attic of the shop here, I have a bunch of those tabs that I kept that I cut out of the magazines and then would put in a binder and look at it. So I thought it would just be interesting to kind of take a little trip down memory lane. I was cleaning things out here in the shop the other day, and I came across all the music books that I've kept. And I don't think there's many, if any, that I've gotten rid of. I never bought that many books. I mainly relied upon the magazines. So I thought that we'd take a look at what 14-year-old me was looking at to learn how to play guitar. So let's start at the start. The very first book that I ever got for guitar was this one right here, the Happy Traum Basic Guitar Lessons. If you don't know who Happy Traum was, he was a folk guy. And this book is just really, really super basic. I mean, I remember sitting and just plugging away at single note things, just going dun, 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 doing quarter notes and things like that. So I did work my way through this entire book, and that was really my introduction to guitar, was Happy Traum's book number 1, Basic Guitar Lessons. I never bought the next ones in the series because I moved on to using tablature. All right, we'll just keep going here. Here we have an Al Di Meola. He's, a famous jazz guy. And this book kind of delves much deeper into theory and getting into more serious things. This book I never worked all the way through, but I definitely used it in conjunction with a music theory class that I took in high school. It really helped me kind of start understanding how everything worked together. This is kind of where a lot of my chordal knowledge and my ability to fingerpick kind of came from, the arpeggio section of this book. It was a good one. Then, of course, I've got the Hal Leonard classical guitar book. There's a part of me forever that instill within me I would love to become a very capable classical guitar player, like being able to play, a Bach piece or something like that. I am not there. My fantasy is that when I get even older, I'll sit down with my my vintage Takamine classical guitar, and I'll sit and I'll actually master some of that stuff. Whether that day will actually come remains to be seen. But I think that everybody should have a good grasp of, how to play some basics on nylon. It translates really, really well to electric guitar and writing pop music, because then you can kind of, make things a little bit more interesting, harmonically, melodically, if you do have a basic foundation in some sort of classical guitar. And then now we get into some of the stuff that you'd expect. Got a couple Led Zeppelin books here. Definitely, everybody of my era, we all knew how to play all the basic Zeppelin riffs. It's something that I left behind pretty quickly because I realized, well, if we've got, 20 people in my high school who can all play Black Dog really well, I decided that I needed to differentiate myself very early on by writing my own material. But I definitely have, had at one point a firm grasp on that style of guitar. Also, I would say I was more interested in learning Black Sabbath stuff than I was Zeppelin. So I went on to kind of master most of Tony Iommi's riffs rather than focusing on Jimmy Page. I think Jimmy Page is still overdone to death. And but it was part of my journey, So there are those. And this one's funny. This book, and I'll keep both of these books actually. This book, Three Dog Night, this is just something I picked up probably in the used section for nothing. And I went through a brief phase where I just explored every classic rock band from the 60s and early 70s. And I liked their vocal harmonies really well. So I learned a few of these songs. And it really helped me, though, come up with different kind of song structures than most of my peers at the time. Knowing how to play some Three Dog Night was kind of cool. Same with Grand Funk. Grand Funk is a highly underrated band in my opinion. They were a three-piece. They did some really incredible things, and their song structures were interesting. So this one also helped kind of shape my songwriting and approach to like putting together chord progressions and stuff. All right, now we're going to get into the meat of some stuff here. Jeff Beck. Goes without saying, it's a shame that towards the end of his career, he partnered up with some people he probably shouldn't have. But anyway, my opinions aside on that, overall his career arc was really fascinating. His playing, of course, out of the big canon of British blues-based guitar players, he really stands out because he's just not a blues-based player. He kind of went off into his own world, and if I had to pick the most technically gifted and melodically gifted guitarist of, that time period, Jeff Beck would definitely be at the top of that list. And I learned a fair bit of Jeff Beck riffs when I was, when I was coming up and learning really how to solo on my own. I like taking his stuff as a jumping off point to going, oh, well, then I could go and explore these things as well. Very amazing player. Now, nobody from my time period would be complete without a little bit of Metallica. I did end up becoming much more of a Slayer person myself when it comes to this style of music. But I definitely learned a lot from this book just about, rhythm work more than anything. I've always kind of defaulted to being more of a Dave Mustaine or a Jeff Hanneman kind of person as far as appreciating that style of soloing. But I had And Justice for All and worked on that in '88. AC/DC, you have to learn some AC/DC at some point, especially coming from, like I said, the middle of the 80s. The great thing about this anthology is it had a lot of Bon Scott stuff in it. I've always been more of a Bon Scott person than a Brian Johnson person, so this was invaluable. Just to learn how to write those kind of songs, those great, 2 and 3 chord hook songs that just really have that amazing guitar tone. All right. And during my stoner phase, I of course had to have some Grateful Dead on tap. Definitely Box of Rain still remains a song that if I was going to go do an acoustic set, I would probably have to dig this book out and relearn Box of Rain. There's some tricky chord changes in there. It's a long song as well. Not a Deadhead by any stretch of the imagination these days, but when I was in high school for a while, the Grateful Dead were definitely a big part of my musical development. Okay, I saved kind of the best for last here. Not a fan of his later work, but Santana, definitely that prime, first 3 or 4 albums. Santana was one of the guitarists I studied the most for phrasing, for using the same kind of scale patterns that he did, and just those, big bends and sustained notes. I think that Santana really brought a new voice to the guitar in much the same way that Jeff Beck and Hendrix did. So for sure, this book, I learned this entire book note for note. And the same goes for the next one. we've got David Gilmour. So this is just like a selection of his best, or most memorable parts. And I have played this book front to back so many times. Gilmour still remains one of my favorite guitar players and just human beings in general. See, he seems to be a really cool guy, and his playing is just unmatched as far as, being able to sing the solos and everything being super memorable. And then the last book that I found, it's just a book of pop songs. A lot of them are from the 80s, new wave stuff in here. There is some stuff from the old guard in here as well. And this book was really handy for me when I started playing coffee houses, because I could go to it and be like, oh, gee, we don't have quite enough material for tonight. And in here, it's just simple chord charts. So I use this book a lot just to grab songs, just to fill out set lists, and just to learn how other people put songs together. So, ancient history, it's part of my journey. I thought I'd share it with everybody, kind of get an idea of where I came from. These books definitely show kind of the arc and the variety of things that I was interested in as a musician and remain interested in to this day. Songwriting always comes first for me, but I still want to be able to put really nice guitar solos on things. And, when I'm putting other rhythm instruments in after I've done my main tracks, all of this stuff adds up to being able to add different flavors and textures. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. I know that a lot of people will be like, oh, here's a crusty old guy talking about learning how to play guitar the real way. I think that today, with the multitude of resources out there, it's wonderful, because I think that every era of music is really well represented at this point online, and being able to watch people break things down, I think there's just a tremendous amount of resources out there for budding musicians and veteran musicians alike to learn new stuff. And that's what it's all about, is continuing to learn, continuing to branch out, continuing to get better. And but it's just interesting that is how, we used to start. We started off by just sitting and listening to the cassette or, the vinyl, and sitting with one of these books, spread out on the bed in front of us, sitting there learning how to play that way. And it was just, I'm grateful that that's how I learned, but I'm a little jealous of all the multitude of resources for players starting out today, because there's so much good stuff out there. All right. Well, you take care, hit subscribe for me, and we'll see you next time. And leave a comment. Is there, what books did you use if you're an older person who learned how to play this way? Or, if you're a younger person, do you use any of those kind of resources anymore that are actually hard copy? All right. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.